Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into a question that might have been lingering in your mind. What if she still thinks about you, but will never reach out? You see the signs. She checks your social media, revisits old messages, and maybe even starts typing something before deleting it. But why won't she take that step? Is it fear? Pride? Or is it something more profound? A silent battle between her emotions and her ego. In this video, we'll break down the psychological dynamics, revealing why she stays silent, why your response or lack thereof matters more than you think, and how you can turn this situation into your most significant advantage. So stay with me until the end, because by the time we're done, you'll see the power of silence in a new light. Let's get into it. 1. She's watching but won't reach out. She still thinks about you. The memory of you lingers in her mind, unshaken despite her silence. She tells herself she has moved on and that reaching out would be a mistake, yet her actions betray her words. She scrolls through your social media, looking for signs of change, signs that you might still care. She rereads old messages, feeling a pull she refuses to acknowledge. She types out a message, fingers hovering over the send button, only to delete it before it can see the light of day. The desire is there, but so is the fear. The longing is fundamental, but so is her pride. Her mind is at war with itself. On one side, emotions push her toward you, reminding her of the connection, the attraction, the comfort she once felt. On the other, her ego resists, unwilling to risk rejection and admit that she no longer holds the power she once did. She tells herself that you would have reached out first if you cared. She convinces herself that silence is strength, that control is in restraint. Yet, every time she checks your profile and hesitates before sending a message, she proves to herself that she is still affected. This internal conflict is cognitive dissonance, the mental discomfort that arises when one's actions do not align with one's beliefs. She wants to believe she is indifferent and that walking away was the right decision, but the need to check up on you suggests otherwise. She craves reassurance that she still influences you and that you haven't fully moved on. Yet reaching out would mean surrendering the illusion of control, admitting vulnerability, and risking the one thing her pride cannot handle: rejection. Women, like men, experience emotional triggers that dictate their actions. Fear of rejection keeps her silent. The loss of control keeps her watching. Wounded pride keeps her from taking the first step. She will wait, hoping you will make the move and validate her unspoken feelings. But if you don't, remain detached and refuse to chase, she will feel the shift, and in that moment, the power dynamic changes. What was once hesitation may become a regret. What was once distance may turn into pursuit. Because nothing unsettles the mind more than realizing that the one you assumed would always be there no longer is. 2. The power of silence in attraction. Silence is a tool few men know how to wield, yet it is one of the most potent forces in attraction. When a woman pulls away, whether through distance, hesitation, or an outright break, a man's instinct is to close the gap. He wants to reach out, explain, and find some excuse to reconnect. He rationalizes his impulses, convincing himself that a simple message will clarify things, that he just needs closure, and that she might be waiting for him to take the first step. But in reality, the moment he reaches out, he relinquishes control. He confirms what she already suspects. She still holds power over him. People would rather suffer in silence than admit they were wrong. This is especially true in relationships. If a woman has chosen to create distance, She will rarely return out of sheer regret. Instead, she will wait. She will test. She will observe. If he chases, she is reassured of her position. If he remains silent, however, something shifts. She starts to question herself. She wonders why he hasn't reached out. Did she misjudge him? Did she underestimate his value? If he is so unaffected, maybe she was wrong about him. The psychology behind this is rooted in power dynamics. The one who cares less in a relationship has more power. This does not mean a man should suppress his emotions or pretend to be indifferent. It means he must understand the weight of his actions. Every time he reacts emotionally to a woman's withdrawal, he reinforces her control. She is no longer the one who feels the loss, he is. But the dynamic changes if he remains composed and lets silence do the work for him. The discomfort of absence begins to set in, not for him, but for her. Most men make the mistake of overanalyzing. They overthink, convincing themselves that if they craft the perfect message, if they find the proper excuse, they can somehow regain her interest. They fail to see that the moment they reach out, they erase all doubt she may have had. She no longer has to wonder where he stands. He has just made it clear. But a man who understands silence does not play this game. He does not reach out. He does not explain himself. He does not give her the satisfaction of knowing he is waiting. Instead, he continues forward, unbothered, allowing time and distance to shift the power back in his favor. The beauty of silence is that it forces reflection. When a man steps back and refuses to give in to impulse, a woman is left with nothing but her thoughts, and thoughts are powerful. The mind fills in the blanks and often does so in ways that create doubt, curiosity, and longing. A woman who once felt confident about her decision begins to question it. She replays past moments, wondering if she was too quick to dismiss him. She starts to miss the attention she once took for granted. And slowly, the dynamic changes, not because he tried to convince her, but because he allowed space for her to convince herself. A man who masters silence is a man who holds the true advantage. He does not chase what is pulling away. He does not seek validation through reaction. He understands that attraction is not maintained through words but through presence, or in this case, the absence of it. By resisting the urge to reach out, he does not just regain control, he shifts the balance of desire. And when she finally returns, it will not be because he begged for it, but because she realized on her own that he was worth returning to. 3. Why chasing pushes her further away. Men often believe persistence is the key to winning a woman's heart. They think that if they show her enough attention, reassure her of their feelings, and prove their dedication, she will eventually reciprocate. But in reality, the opposite happens. The more you chase, the more she pulls away. The more available you are, the less she values you. Women are not drawn to desperation. They are drawn to confidence, self-sufficiency, and a sense of mystery. When a man becomes too predictable and too eager to please, he loses the very qualities that made him attractive in the first place. Attraction thrives on tension. It needs a balance of presence and absence, of certainty and uncertainty. When you constantly reach out first and seek her validation through frequent texts and reassurances, you remove the element of mystery. She knows exactly where she stands with you and stops thinking about you. There is no anticipation, no curiosity, no longing. Women do not desire what is handed to them freely. They crave what feels just out of reach. It is human nature to value what is scarce, to chase what seems unattainable. The moment she feels she has you all together, without effort, she unconsciously begins to lose interest. Desperation is repellent. It signals insecurity, a lack of self-worth, and an inability to be content. A woman wants to feel like she has earned a man's attention, not like she is the only thing holding him together. When a man places all his emotional weight on a woman's approval, she feels the pressure of being responsible for his happiness. This is not attractive. It is exhausting. A woman does not want to be your emotional anchor. She wants to be drawn to your strength, to your ability to stand firm, whether she is there or not. The paradox of attraction is that certainty kills. When a woman is entirely sure of a man's feelings and knows he will always be there regardless of how she treats him, she stops valuing his presence. This is why men who are too available often find themselves ignored, while those who create a sense of distance remain on her mind. When a man pulls away and shifts his focus inward instead of outward, something interesting happens. She starts to feel the void he leaves behind. Instead of taking his attention for granted, she wonders about him. She questions whether she misjudged him, whether he has moved on, whether she still has his interest, and in that uncertainty, attraction reignites. Psychologically, people fear loss more than they appreciate gain. A woman may not consciously realize she is losing interest in a man who chases her, but she will immediately feel a shift when he stops. A psychological trigger is activated when he disappears, withdraws his attention, and stops making himself available. She starts to reflect on his value, to recall what drew her to him in the first place. Absence forces her to consider his worth, while constant presence allows her to take him for granted. The solution is simple but not easy. Stop chasing. Pull back, not as a manipulative tactic, but as an act of self-respect. Focus on your own life, your goals, your passions. Create a sense of independence that makes you attractive to her and everyone around you. Let her feel what it is like not to have you constantly seeking her approval. Let uncertainty build in her mind. Let her curiosity take over. The men who are most desired are not the ones who try the hardest. They are the ones who are secure enough to walk away if necessary. They are the ones who do not chase, but instead inspire women to come to them. 4. Emotional mastery. Why control is attractive. A woman does not lose attraction to a man because she stops loving him. She loses attraction because she stops feeling drawn to him. Attraction is not purely logical, it is visceral, rooted in deep biological instincts that women themselves may not fully understand. A woman may want a kind, sensitive man who expresses his emotions freely, but she is wired to seek stability. She may not even recognize why she starts to feel distant from a man who is overly emotional, reactive, or dependent on her validation. All she knows is that something no longer feels right. Emotional stability is the silent force that separates men who command attraction from those who repel it. A man who cannot control his emotions, who seeks constant reassurance, who reacts impulsively, who crumbles when faced with rejection, exposes a weakness that women are biologically programmed to avoid. In the early stages of human evolution, survival depended on the strength of the tribe's leaders. An emotionally unpredictable man was a liability, a threat to stability. That instinct remains hardwired in women today. They may live in a modern world, but their subconscious still evaluates men through the same ancient lens. When a woman pulls away, tests your patience and challenges you emotionally, she is not doing it to be cruel. She is assessing whether you are strong enough to handle the weight of her emotions. If you break, lash out in anger, or beg for reassurance, she instinctively feels you are not as steady as she needs you to be. But if you remain composed and acknowledge the situation without allowing it to control you, She feels something different. She feels safe. She feels respect. And where respect exists, attraction thrives. This is why men who beg, plead, or spiral out of control after a breakup never get the response they hope for. A woman does not come back because a man convinces her with words. She comes back because she senses his strength in silence. The man who adapts moves forward without losing himself and does not chase, but instead refocuses on his own life, is the man who reawakens attraction, not because he manipulates her, but because his emotional mastery signals that he is the kind of man she is wired to want. Neuroscience confirms what ancient philosophy has always taught. Emotional resilience is power. The human brain constantly scans for signs of strength or weakness in others. Women subconsciously assess a man's ability to handle stress, uncertainty, and adversity. Her attraction intensifies when she sees a man who does not let external circumstances shake him. She starts to pull away when she sees a man who depends on her emotional validation. The distinction is apparent. Men who control their emotions control the dynamic. A beautiful man does not allow external events to dictate his internal state. He does not seek validation from a woman because he validates himself. He does not react emotionally to challenges because he understands control is not about suppressing emotions, but mastering them. He does not need to prove his worth to anyone because he already knows it. And because of that, women are drawn to him in ways they cannot explain. 5. The power of mystery, making her wonder. Predictability is the death of attraction. When a woman feels like she has figured a man out completely, the intrigue begins to fade. There is no tension, no excitement, no curiosity left to explore. On the other hand, mystery creates a psychological pull that keeps her engaged. It makes her mind work overtime, analyzing, questioning, and wondering. A man who remains unpredictable is a man who lingers in her thoughts, even when he is absent. Right now, she believes she knows you. She has mapped out your patterns, your reactions, your habits. She knows when you will text, what you will say, how you will respond. And because of that, she doesn't have to think about you. But the moment you break those patterns and become unreadable, something shifts. Her mind begins to work against her, filling the gaps with uncertainty. Is he seeing someone new? Why hasn't he reacted to my post? Has he moved on? The questions begin to form, and so does emotional investment. Cognitive psychology shows that uncertainty fuels attraction. The human mind is wired to seek closure, to resolve the unknown. When a woman can't predict you, she starts investing mental energy into decoding you. That energy turns into obsession. The more mysterious you become, the more she needs to figure you out. This is why the men who appear slightly out of reach, somewhat enigmatic, are often the ones women desire most. It is not about deception, but about maintaining an air of unpredictability that keeps the emotional tension alive. Social media is one of the biggest killers of mystery. A woman can track a man's movements, thoughts, and emotions with a few taps on her screen. She knows if he has viewed her story, liked a post, or commented on something. She never has to wonder about him if he reacts predictably and constantly engages. But the moment he stops, when he pulls back, becomes less available and removes himself from her digital world, her mind starts racing. The absence of information forces her to fill in the blanks. The strategy is simple: stop oversharing, create distance, be present in person, but elusive online. Let her wonder instead of handing her all the answers. Attraction is not built through constant reassurance, but through the right balance of closeness and uncertainty. A man who is a puzzle is a man she wants to solve. And as long as she is trying to figure you out, she is still invested in you. 6. Rebuilding your value, the art of self-improvement. Women pay attention to what you do, not what you say. After a breakup, she isn't listening to your promises, explanations, or regrets. She is watching to see if you rise, crumble, move forward, or stay stuck. This is where most men fail. They linger in the past, trapped in a cycle of self-pity, hoping she will notice their pain and return. But suffering does not inspire regret. Strength does. A man who transforms and elevates himself beyond who he was becomes a man she cannot forget. There are only two paths after heartbreak. One is obsession, the desperate need to prove something to her, to make her see what she lost. This path leads nowhere. It keeps you emotionally tied to her, operating from a place of insecurity. The other path is transformation. It is the choice to evolve, not for her, not for revenge, but for yourself. True self-improvement is not about making her miss you. It is about becoming a man so valuable and refined that her presence or absence no longer matters. Ironically, this is what makes her regret leaving. Not your sadness, not your longing, but your growth. Regret is rooted in comparison. She feels justified in her decision if she sees you stagnant, struggling to move on. But if she sees you thriving, physically stronger, mentally sharper, financially more stable, it forces her to reevaluate. Regret does not come from your suffering. It comes from the realization that you have become someone she can no longer reach, someone beyond her grasp. The key to this transformation lies in three fundamental areas: body, mind, and social expansion. Physically, he is a man who pushes himself in the gym, builds strength and endurance, and radiates a different kind of energy. He carries himself with confidence and purpose. Mentally, he sharpens his skills, broadens his knowledge, and deepens his understanding of himself and the world. He does not dwell on the past. He focuses on his future. Financially, he increases his value not just in monetary terms, but in his ability to provide, create, and command respect in his field. Socially, he expands his world, meets new people, engages in new experiences, and refuses to let his life revolve around one person's absence. The ultimate goal is detachment. Not indifference in the sense of bitterness or avoidance, but in the sense of emotional freedom. When a man reaches this stage and no longer cares whether she reaches out, he has won. He has broken free from the need for external validation. Paradoxically, this is when she notices that nothing is more attractive and powerful than a man who no longer needs to be seen. 7. The psychological trigger: how regret works. People do not regret losing someone who is still emotionally available to them. She feels secure in her decision as long as she believes you are still invested, still thinking about her, and waiting for a chance to reconnect. Even if she experiences a moment of doubt, the reassurance that you are still an option prevents any real sense of loss from settling in. There is no urgency, no deep emotional response, just the comfort of knowing she still holds power over you. But the moment she senses you have moved on, everything changes. What was once certainty turns into doubt. Your silence, instead of being passive, becomes an act of rejection, and human nature resists rejection far more than it embraces security. This is where regret begins to take shape. She starts wondering if she made a mistake. She checks your social media, asks mutual friends about you, or even creates excuses to reach out, not because she necessarily wants you back, but because she hates the idea of losing control over something she once had. This reaction is rooted in a well-documented psychological principle known as loss aversion. Studies show that people feel the pain of losing something far more intensely than they experience pleasure from gaining something new. It is not just about missing you, it is about the sudden realization that you are no longer within her grasp. She could afford to be indifferent when you were available and eager, but now that you are gone, she is forced to re-evaluate. The validation she once took for granted has disappeared, and its absence creates discomfort. When they sense a woman pulling away, most men react in ways that reinforce her decision. They chase, they plead, and they try to prove their worth. Ironically, this only strengthens her resolve. She feels suffocated, reassured that leaving was the right choice because she still holds the upper hand. The key is to do the opposite: disappear, elevate, not as an act of manipulation or a game, but a reflection of genuine self-respect. When a man shifts his focus from proving his value to becoming more valuable, the dynamic changes entirely. It is not about seeking revenge or trying to make her jealous. It is about redirecting your energy toward your growth. The more you invest in yourself, mentally, physically, emotionally, the more naturally attractive you become. And the more unavailable you are, the more she begins to wonder. Because deep down, it is not you she regrets losing. It is the power she once had over you. 8. Why she's watching, but won't reach out. She hasn't reached out, but she's watching. Every post, every story, every subtle shift in your life, she sees it, and yet she remains silent. It's not indifference, and it's certainly not because she's moved on effortlessly. She's caught in a battle between her ego and her emotions. Reaching out would mean exposing herself, risking the possibility that you no longer care. That is a fear she's not ready to confront. Instead, she lingers in the background, waiting, hoping for some sign that you're still emotionally invested. Because as long as you are, she retains a sense of control. This is psychological warfare, and whether she's aware of it or not, she's playing the game. By withholding contact, she keeps the balance of power tilted in her favor. She wins if you break first, send that text, or reach out just to check in. She gets confirmation that you're still waiting, still attached, still orbiting her world. And the moment she senses the urgency she once felt begins to fade, she no longer has to wonder. She no longer has to miss you. Your presence, your desire, is already guaranteed. The only way to shift the dynamic is to detach completely. It's not about ignoring her or manipulating her. It's about recognizing your worth and refusing to be drawn into a silent tug of war for power. When you stop reacting, when you truly let go, that's when the panic sets in for her. Suddenly, the control she thought she had started slipping through her fingers. She wonders why you haven't checked in, why you aren't chasing, why the man who once cared so much has seemingly moved on without hesitation. That uncertainty stirs something deep inside her, the realization that maybe, just maybe, she was wrong about you. Silence is more potent than words you could ever send when used correctly. Let her feel the weight of your absence. Let her sit with the unknown, because when she finally reaches out, it won't be out of convenience. It will be because she genuinely feels the loss. 9. The Stoic mindset, becoming the prize. Most men enter the dating world with the wrong frame of mind. They place women on a pedestal, believing that attraction can be earned through effort and validation. This mindset makes them chase, overanalyze, and ultimately lose power. A man who sees a woman as the ultimate prize unknowingly signals to her that he is beneath her. Women do not chase men who appear desperate for their attention. They chase scarce men who embody value without seeking approval. Stoicism teaches that others do not determine your value. You define it alone. A woman's interest, affection, or rejection does not increase or decrease your worth. When you truly internalize this, everything changes. You stop waiting for her to text, you stop checking her social media, and most importantly, you stop wondering whether she will come back. True detachment is not pretending to be indifferent while secretly hoping for her attention. It is moving forward with certainty that even if she were to reach out, it would not affect you. Ironically, this is when she feels your absence the most. A shift occurs when a man withdraws emotionally, not as a tactic, but as a reflection of his self-respect. The energy she once felt from his pursuit vanishes, leaving a void. That void forces her to question, wonder, and feel the absence of something she once took for granted. Women are entirely independent and drawn to men who do not need them. She reevaluates her feelings when she senses that her presence or absence no longer affects you. The final test of emotional mastery is this: if you are still wondering whether she will reach out, you have not truly let go. A man who has embraced his values does not linger in uncertainty. He does not wait, he does not watch, and he does not hold on to the past. He moves forward, clearly, fully aware that his worth is not tied to one woman. In doing so, he becomes the prize, not by playing games, but by embodying the unshakable confidence of a man who has already won. Conclusion: the real lesson isn't about winning her back, but becoming a man who no longer needs her validation. When you shift your focus from seeking external approval to mastering yourself, you unlock confidence that no one can take away. The best revenge isn't proving anything to her. It's succeeding in ways that make her presence or absence completely irrelevant. The moment she realizes you're truly gone, that's when she feels it the most. So remember, silence is your most potent weapon. Use it wisely. Chasing her lowers your value. Walk away instead. Your absence creates uncertainty, which fuels attraction. True detachment isn't pretending. It's genuinely moving on. And the ultimate goal isn't revenge. It's self-improvement. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever experienced this dynamic? What strategies have helped you regain your power in a relationship? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this video insightful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more content on mastering attraction, self-improvement, and the psychology of relationships. See you in the next one. Hey everyone, welcome back to our little sanctuary, our space where we sit down together like old friends, sharing a pot of tea or coffee on a quiet, rainy afternoon, and unpack the messy, beautiful, complicated stuff that makes us human. Today, I want us to talk about something that's heavy, something that's left its fingerprints on almost every heart in this world. A breakup. Close your eyes for a second and imagine it. The moment when everything shifts, when your chest tightens like it's caught in a vice, when your mind spins with 1,000 questions, and your heart feels like it's been dropped from the sky, splintering into pieces you're not sure you can gather up again. I've been there, more times than I'd care to admit, and I'd bet my last dollar that you felt that sting too. Or maybe you've stood by a friend as they've waded through it. Those raw, jagged days when sadness floods every corner of you, when anger flares hot and wild, when you lie awake at night wondering if you'll ever feel steady again, if you'll ever feel like you again. But here's the thing. What if I told you that right there, smack in the middle of that wreckage, there's a path? Not just a way to crawl out of the rubble, but a way to rise up stronger, wiser, more alive, more yourself than you ever thought possible. That's what Stoicism, a philosophy forged centuries ago by brilliant souls like Epictetus, Seneca, and Marcus Aurelius, hands us. It's not a fairy tale fix or a promise of endless sunshine. It's a lantern in the dark, a whisper that says, "You're tougher than this storm." So pull up a chair, get comfy, and let's walk this road together. Turning the ache of a breakup into a powerful story of emotional strength and personal growth, with every ounce of heart, hope, and honesty I've got to give. When a relationship ends, the first thing that slams into you is this vast, hollow void, like the air's been sucked out of the room and you're left gasping. I'll never forget my first real heartbreak. It was a damp, grey evening in late fall, the kind where the world outside feels as heavy as the one inside. I was sprawled across my faded blue couch, a thick blanket pulled tight around me. Not because the apartment was cold, but because I needed something to cling to, something to shield me from the emptiness clawing at my chest. The sadness was suffocating, a thick fog that settled into every breath, and every now and then a flash of anger would cut through. Anger at him for walking away, at myself for not holding it together, at the universe for letting it all unravel. Maybe you've been there too, that wild tangle of emotions tumbling over each other, grief slicing deep, regret gnawing at your bones, a sharp, bitter sting of rejection that makes you wonder what you did wrong, what you could have done differently. I sat there, staring at the rain streaking down my window pane, the glass fogging up with each shaky breath, and I asked myself a question that wouldn't let go. Who am I now without him? It's a question that lingers after a breakup, isn't it? We pour so much of ourselves into these connections, our dreams, our routines, our sense of home, and when they snap, it's like a piece of us snaps too. We're left standing there, dazed, wondering how to fill the space they left behind. That's human. Our hearts aren't built to release without a struggle. But here's where Stoicism steps in. Quiet and steady, like a friend who doesn't rush to fix you but sits with you, looks you square in the eye and says, "You don't have to let this drown you. There's a way through." I first tripped over Stoicism in one of my lowest chapters, not just a breakup, but a season where it felt like life had stripped me bare, leaving me with nothing but doubts and a bruised spirit. A close friend, the kind who always knows when you're sinking, slipped a battered copy of Marcus Aurelius's Meditations into my hands one afternoon. I didn't crack it open right away. I wasn't ready. But a few nights later, restless and hollow, I flipped to a random page. His words hit me like a jolt. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. I'll be real with you. At first, I didn't buy it. Power? Me? When I could barely drag myself out of bed? But Stoicism isn't about slapping a smile on your face or pretending the hurt's not there. It's about staring that hurt down, letting it wash over you and finding a way to stand tall anyway. Not because the pain's gone, but because you're bigger than it. It's not a guarantee of easy days. It's a roadmap for the hard ones. A way to carve peace out of chaos. So where do we start? Right at the beginning, with acceptance. Not the weak, defeated kind where you shrug and surrender, but a bold, eyes wide open acceptance that says, this is what's happened and I can face it head on. After that first breakup, I spent what felt like an eternity caught in a web of what-ifs and if-onlys. What if I'd said something softer that last night we talked? What if I'd fought harder when he started pulling away? What if I'd been braver, funnier, prettier? Someone he couldn't leave. Those thoughts were like a treadmill set to sprint. I ran and ran, exhausting myself, but got nowhere. Then I stumbled across Epictetus. He was a man who'd known real chains before he found freedom in his mind. And he wrote, "There is only one way to happiness, and that is to cease worrying about things which are beyond the power of our will." It was like someone flipped on a light in a room I'd been fumbling through blind. My misery wasn't just from him leaving. It was from me kicking against a door that was already locked. He was gone. The relationship was finished. It was a fact, solid and unyielding, like the rain tapping my window or the moon climbing the sky. And when I finally let that truth settle, when I stopped clawing at what couldn't be changed, a weight lifted. Not all of it, not yet. I still cried, still ached, but I'd stopped draining myself on a battle I couldn't win. I'd turned my gaze from what was lost to what I could still hold. I met a woman once, a bright soul in her early 30s, at a small gathering I hosted about finding calm in life's storms. She opened up over a cup of tea, her voice trembling as she told me how her breakup had gutted her, how she'd sobbed until her throat was raw, how she'd replayed every moment she thought she'd fallen short. But one quiet morning, skimming a book she'd borrowed, she found Seneca's line, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." It stopped her cold, she said. She got up from her bed, shuffled to her kitchen window, pushed it open to let the crisp air rush in, and whispered to herself, "It's over. I can't undo it, but I can choose what I do now." The pain didn't vanish like magic. Grief's not that tidy, but it softened, shifted, like a thunderstorm easing into a gentle drizzle. She looked at me with this faint, fragile smile and said, "I'm not there yet, but I'm not stuck anymore." That's what acceptance does. It's not about erasing what you feel. It's about laying down the fight against what's already real, freeing your hands to start stitching yourself back together, trusting that you've got the resilience to keep moving. Let's dig deeper now into one of Stoicism's cornerstone ideas, something that's been a lifeline for me through more than one rough patch and might just anchor you too: the dichotomy of control. Epictetus laid it out so cleanly it almost feels too simple. There are things we can control and things we can't. What's in our grasp, our thoughts, our choices, the way we meet each new day with our chin up or our shoulders slumped. What's beyond us? Other people's actions, the history we can't rewrite, the sudden jolts life throws, like a breakup or a goodbye you didn't see coming. I first heard this on a rainy afternoon, tucked into a corner of a little coffee shop I loved, the kind with chipped mugs and windows streaked with water. I was nursing a lukewarm latte, my mind churning over why he'd left, every text I'd sent that went unanswered, every glance he'd thrown my way in those final days, every word I wished I'd swallowed or shouted instead. I was trying to decode it, to crack some puzzle that would let me rewind time, even though he was already out the door, already a memory. But then this idea sank in. I couldn't control his heart, his steps, his choice to turn away, and neither can you. Pause here and think about your own breakup. Really sit with it for a moment. It's done, isn't it? That chapter's closed, sealed tight like a letter you can't unwrite. How your ex feels today, what they're thinking as they scroll their phone or sip their morning coffee, whether they miss you or curse you or don't think of you at all. That's all out there, floating beyond your reach, like leaves carried off by the wind. But how you wake up tomorrow, how you catch your reflection in the bathroom mirror and say, "I'm still standing," How you choose to bandage your wounds and step back into the world. That's yours. That's your territory, your power. I met a woman once at a weekend retreat I was leading. She was in her 40s with tired eyes but a quiet strength I couldn't miss. She told me her husband had walked out after 12 years, leaving her reeling, drowning in questions. Was I not enough? Did I miss something? She'd spent months tearing herself apart, she said, until she stumbled across Marcus Aurelius. Reject your sense of injury, and the injury itself disappears. It flipped everything for her. She started focusing on what she could hold. Eating meals that nourished her, taking slow walks in the park near her house, picking up a sketchbook she'd abandoned years ago. Little by little, she stitched herself back together, and that breakup stopped being a gaping hole. It became a pivot point, a place where she turned toward herself. Your strength isn't in bending the past to your will, it's in shaping what you do with the present. So how do we build that strength, piece by piece, until it's something solid you can lean on? Stoicism offers us tools, simple, real, and tougher than they look. One I swear by is journaling, something Marcus Aurelius turned to again and again. He wasn't just an emperor commanding armies, he was a man wrestling with his thoughts, spilling them onto parchment to untangle his mind and heart. After a breakup, carve out a quiet space, maybe by a window where the light filters in soft and warm, or on your bed with a lamp casting a gentle glow, and write. Don't fuss over making it pretty or profound. Just let your pen move. Let your feelings bleed onto the page. What's tearing at you? What's burning you up? What do you long for most? When I tried this after a breakup that left me gutted, I didn't expect much, just a way to vent, maybe. But what came out floored me. I wrote about missing him, his crooked smile over breakfast, the way he'd tease me about my terrible singing. But then I kept going, and I found something else. I was grieving the me I'd let slip away, the one who'd muted her own voice, shelved her own dreams, just to keep him close. Writing didn't heal me overnight, but it lit a match in the dark, showing me pieces of myself I'd forgotten, lessons I'd been too shattered to see. I shared this trick once with a group of friends over a late-night pizza run. Nothing fancy, just us sprawled on a living room floor swapping stories. One of them, a guy who usually keeps his cards close, looked at me and said, "You should write more. It's like you're peeling back layers, and it makes us want to look at ourselves too." That stuck with me. When you journal after a breakup, you're not just mending your own cracks, you're tracing a path that might light someone else's way. Imagine it. You're sitting there, a notebook open in your lap, the scratch of your pen the only sound breaking the stillness, and each word pulls you a little further out of the shadows. One night, I wrote about what I loved, his goofy laugh, the way we'd stay up talking about nothing. But then I wrote about what I didn't, the arguments that stretched too long, the nights I felt like I was begging for scraps of his attention. Page after page, the fog lifted. Not everything was perfect, not even close, and losing it wasn't the catastrophe I'd made it out to be. It was a chance to start over, to claim myself back. Then there's mindfulness, staying right here, right now, something the Stoics lived without slapping a trendy label on it. Find a moment, sit still, breathe deep, feel the air slide in, fill your chest, slip out again, and let it root you to this second, not the yesterday that stabs or the tomorrow that looms. I'd park myself on my couch as the day faded, eyes closed, whispering to myself, "This hurts, but it's not eternal." Seneca got it dead on. We suffer more often in imagination than in reality. Our heads spin these wild, wrenching stories, replaying every harsh word, dreaming up futures we'll never live. That hurt more than the bare bones of what's true. One morning, sitting with my breath, I heard a dog barking down the street, a cheerful yip that broke through my haze, and I thought, life's still out there, moving, even if I'm stuck. It was small, but it was enough to nudge me forward. A friend of mine hit a breaking point after her breakup. Nights wide awake, her mind a carousel of regrets she couldn't stop. I tossed out a suggestion over coffee one day. Try breathing, just 5 minutes. Focus on that and nothing else. She smirked, sounds like hippie nonsense, but she gave it a whirl. First time, she said, her thoughts raced straight back to him. Every promise he broke, every plan they'd scratched out. But she didn't quit. She stretched it minute by minute, day by day. A week later, she texted me, voice bubbling through the line, "I can do 10 minutes now without crumbling. It's like I'm steering my own brain again." That little lift in her tone, it was her climbing back to herself. Mindfulness doesn't snap its fingers and make the pain disappear. It hands you a rope, a way to hold on when the waves keep coming. And don't overlook reframing, twisting the lens on your pain until it shows you something new. What if a breakup isn't a collapse but a reroute? I had a buddy who tanked when his longtime girlfriend bailed. He shut himself in, lost in a loop of why me, barely answering his phone. But one random Tuesday he hauled out an old acoustic guitar he'd bought years back and never touched. His fingers fumbled and ached, but every chord he strung together felt like a spark. If she'd stayed, I'd never have picked this up, he told me months later, strumming a riff with a grin that reached his eyes. Pain's not your enemy. It's a gruff mentor, shoving you toward your own grit, pointing you down trails you'd have skipped. Ask yourself, what's this teaching me? How can I stretch from here? After my second breakup, I saw I'd hung on too long, terrified of the quiet that comes with being alone. When it crashed, I had to face that fear, and I found I liked the sound of my own thoughts. One crisp afternoon, wandering a park with leaves swirling gold around me, I realized I'm whole, just me. Heartbreak delivered that, rough and real. Self-forgiveness matters too. We're vicious to ourselves when love falls apart. What I screw up? Why wasn't I enough? I'd sit for hours dissecting every misstep, convinced I could have dodged the end if I'd just been smarter, kinder, more. Seneca cut that spiral short. To err is human, to persist in error is foolish. Be the friend you'd be to someone else. If they spilled their breakup woes over coffee, you'd hug them, not hound them. Give yourself that grace. I started muttering. I wasn't flawless, but I gave what I could then. Now I can give better, to me. Letting go of self-punishment isn't dodging accountability. It's clearing the slate so you can walk on free. Now reflect. Look back at that relationship with a steady gaze, not to point fingers, but to sift out wisdom. Grab a pen, a scrap of paper, not to draft a rant to them, but to talk to you. What glowed? What dimmed you? After one breakup, I saw I'd loved his easy charm, but ignored how he'd brush off my feelings like they were dust. I'd dodged red flags, his silences that stretched too wide, my voice shrinking to fit his space, because I dreaded the fall. Writing it down wasn't about settling scores, it was about seeing. What did you learn about you? Any scars to soothe? Qualities you'll hunt for or steer clear of next time. I met a woman once, her hair streaked with silver, her voice soft but sure. She'd ended a 20-year marriage and sat down to map it out. The warm years, the cold fights, the dreams she'd buried. I forgot I wanted to travel, she said, a spark flickering in her eye. Now I'm plotting my first solo adventure. Reflection's not just a goodbye, it's a hello to what's ahead. Think of it like a trek. Not every mile's gentle. I got lost hiking once with friends, rain pelting us, legs screaming, sure I'd collapse. Then we found a stream, water cold and clear over my palms, and I knew even the brutal stretches held something worth finding. A breakup's a hard climb, but it's studded with revelations if you don't turn back. You're hammering out patience, depth, guts, stuff that shines fiercer through the grind. And then step into what's next with a reborn you, not to scrub out what was, but to braid it into something richer. A breakup's not the curtain drop, it's a new scene. I've seen folks unearth their calling in the ashes. A friend started a blog after her split. Messy, honest words that grew into a beacon for thousands. I didn't know my mess could matter, she said, beaming as she sketched out her next workshop. Live here now. Yesterday's locked shut, tomorrow's a guess. Chase what lifts you. A stroll, a doodle, a chat with a pal you've missed. Drop the grudges, not for them, but for your own air. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The fire burns brighter with a contrary wind." Today's hurt could fuel tomorrow's blaze. One day, tidying up post-breakup, I found a shoebox, ticket stubs, a faded photo, a note in his jagged scrawl. I sank to the floor, fingers tracing each relic, and I smiled. Not because it didn't ache, but because I'd come so far. I wasn't that trembling shadow anymore. I'd learned to rise, to root for myself, to trust my bones. You've got that too, tucked inside, ready. Stoicism's not just for breakups. It's your compass for the whole wild ride. Loss, flops, fog, it's all one game. Clutch what you can, release what you can't. I used to hunt a flawless frame. Love, work, calm. Stoicism showed me joy in the tangle. A teacher once told me of a man who lost his house to flames but said, "I couldn't kill the fire, but I can rebuild." And he did. Bolder, truer. Breakups bruise deep some days. You'll weep, pine, doubt you'll knit back together. But trust me, and you, it's not the finale. It's a summons to dig out your might. Meet a you you've yet to greet. Don't let it label you, let it forge you. Step up, slow and true, seizing the peace, the glow, the life you're built for. One day you'll look back, not just at wounds, but at a spirit who crossed the night to shine. Grittier, fuller, whole.